Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today my name is Mohd Shukri Hajinoor from the Faculty of Economics and Management, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, the National University of Malaysia. Today we're going to learn about part 2 of the non-tariff barriers. So we come to the subtopic domestic content requirement. Again, this is the effect is a restriction to trade other than tariff. So to limit outsourcing, labor lobbied for domestic content requirements. Minimum percentage of goods value must be produced locally to qualify for zero tariff rates. Pressure domestic and foreign firms to use domestic inputs or workers can result in higher inputs and prices and loss of competitiveness, and to the effect of subsidized by domestic consumers. So here we're gonna look at the graph. So here, this is quantity of a car, Toyota, and the price. And during free trade, we can see this line here. Australia imports 500 units of Toyotas at the price of 24,000 per unit. And as a result, Japanese owners get C plus D here. C plus D. And now with domestic content requirement, Toyota establishes a factory in Australia, but at higher wages. So now P has come up to $33,000 per unit. As a result, demand falls to 300 only. So because production shifted from Japan to Australia, Japanese owners, resource owners now lose C and D of $12 million. Australian resource owners gain A plus C, which is calculated at 9.9 million. Minus income paid to Japanese managers and returns to the capital to Toyota's capital. However, income gain inflicts cost onto Australian consumers. Consumers lose. Originally, consumer surplus is all the way here, including A and B. Now, consumers has lost A and B. You can calculate that. And here, A is no problem. A is a redistribution of welfare from domestic consumers to domestic producers. You can calculate that. But B doesn't go to anyone. So B is a dead weight loss. So A, domestic content requirement, leads to a rising production cost and prices, to the extent that manufacturers are forced to locate production facilities in a high-cost nation. Yeah. From Japan to Australia, high-cost nation. Although the content requirements helps preserve domestic jobs in Australia, it imposes welfare losses on domestic consumers in Australia. Consumers lose A and B, plus the society, the whole country loses B, which is dead weight loss. A, consumers lost it, but doesn't matter, it goes back within the country to producer, but B doesn't go to anyone. So B is a dead weight loss. Next is subsidy. May take form of outright cash, disbursement, tax concession, insurance arrangement, and subsidized loans. First, we're going to look at domestic production subsidy. And next one, we're going to look at the export subsidy. Now, domestic production subsidy is to subsidize domestic producer so that they can produce artificially at a lower cost for them. So this results in high output, redistributive effects, increase in producer surplus for more efficient producers, deadweight loss, protective effect, lower welfare losses than a tariff or quota. Financed by taxpayers. So let's look at the impact of this. Okay, on the left is domestic production subsidy. Let me check with my YouTube whether it's okay. Yes, it works. Okay. On the left, okay, this is domestic production subsidy. Suppose initially this is the supply and demand equilibrium at 430. Suppose US is a small buyer under free trade. This is free trade. It will consume 14. This free trade, the demand curve and the supply of the world, and produces 2. So 12 is the total imports. This under free trade, big 12. With production subsidy of $25 per ton, this will give cost advantage for the US, and as a result, the supply curve shifts to the right. So domestic production expand from 2 now to 7. And now consume still 14. So 7 is the total import. Total import now has reduced from previously 12. Now total import is only 7. So net price for producers is 425. This net price for producers 425. This net price that the producers will get according to the previous old supply curve without the subsidy. This is the net price that the producer will get, 425, which is the price of 400 paid by consumers according to the world price, plus $25 subsidy. So producers get 425, just 400 paid by consumers based on world price plus the subsidy 25. So total cost to the US government is the total import here. or total production here, which is 25, the subsidy, times 7. So A, now consumer has lost. A is a redistributive effect from consumers to suppliers, to the producers. So that's A. Where is it? Yeah, A. Redistributive effect. B is the protective effect, because it's more costly. Domestic output is allowed to be sold. And B, the consumers has lost it, but doesn't go to anyone. So B is dead weight loss. A, consumer lost it, but goes to producers. So A is redistributive effect, B is protective effect, and it is also a dead weight loss. B, the area B. Now this is with subsidy. Now next is export subsidy. So this is the next slide, I believe. Yeah, export subsidies. So let's go back to our bullet point here. This subsidy, we want to compare this with tariff and quota. Actually, subsidy incurs lower welfare loss than a tariff or quota. Remember, tariff and quota are equivalent, the impact. If you can, if you have a quota, actually, you can find a tariff that will bring the same impact to quota. Same impact in terms of total imports. If quota says that imports is only 3, you can find 3 units. You can find tariff level that will make import will be the same, 3. So by theory, tariff is equivalent to quota. However, that can hold only, in the last lecture, that can hold only the equivalence of tariff and quota, that can hold only if there is no change in domestic demand or change in the economy. So if there is a change in domestic demand, increase in domestic demand, for example, quota is more restrictive. So if you want to compare which one is bad, quota is the worst. Tariff is also bad. But subsidy, production subsidy that we just learned here, lower. Why? Let me show you why. Only one dead weight loss. One dead weight loss. Here, B. Compared with tariff or quota, there are 2 dead weight loss. Here. Here. And here. Quota is even worse because there's higher prices. So just seen that tariff, production tariff, results in only one dead weight loss. Okay, next. Export subsidy. Whereas domestic production subsidy is granted to producers of import competing goods, and export subsidy goes to producers of goods to be sold overseas. For both, net price received by producer equals price paid by purchaser plus subsidy, and subsidy revenue redistributed in the form of producer surplus. Higher output and prices for exporters, higher export, lower domestic consumption. Domestic producers gain at the expense of domestic consumers and taxpayers. Decrease in consumer surplus, increase in producer surplus, taxpayers bear cost of export subsidy, and deadweight loss. So really this doesn't tell you much. Let's go to the graph. Okay, now on the right, this is export subsidy. So assume US is a small producer. When we say small, it does not affect the global supply. Horizontal, meaning this country is a small, does not affect the global supply. If there is big country, the line will not be horizontal, will have some gradient. Under free trade, this is free trade here with world price at price of 5, producers 8, consumes only 4, so 4 is total export. Now we're talking about export, okay? Just now we're talking about import. Suppose United States government pays $1 on each product exported. So export subsidy, $1. You export one unit, you get $1 subsidy, export subsidy. So allowing firms to receive at 6, which is the world price, 5 plus $1 subsidy, so $6 per unit. So domestic producers would not sell the product to inside the US for less than $6. As a result, prices go up in the US from $5 to $6. So here to this line, world price plus subsidy. So quantity purchased in the United States, this is the demand line, decrease or falls from 4 to 2, this line now, demand falls from 4 to 2 units. Quantity supplied, on the other hand, increase, rises from 8 to 10. So total export rises as a result. Total export is now 8 compared with previously with free trade, it's only 4. So that's the impact of export subsidy. However, we're going to look at the welfare effect. So domestic producer gain A plus B plus C. Domestic producer gain A plus B plus C. You can calculate that, comes to 9 million. Cost to taxpayer is B plus C plus D. The whole rectangular here, taxpayers pay for the export total. To get to that with the subsidy, this is total subsidy paid by taxpayers. B plus C plus D. So deadweight loss because consumers has lost it. But look at here, B. Even though producer gain A, B, C, but B is part of the here, this here. Taxpayers is paying. And this is inefficient. Or protective effect. Okay, because previously consumers consume 4 and now consumers consume only 2. So this B is a deadweight loss. That's another one. The part that is lost also D. Producers doesn't get it. So D. So deadweight loss. There are 2 parts here. Deadweight loss. So now makes sense what we have read here. Domestic producers gain at the expense of domestic consumers and taxpayers. Decrease in consumer surplus, increase in producer surplus, taxpayers bear the cost of export subsidy, and that involves deadweight loss. 2 parts. Now next we are into the another subtopic, dumping. What is dumping? You dump. But this one has to do with a country selling products overseas either below cost of production, below the cost, or below the prices of that product. So that's considered as unfair trade. It's not free trade because you are dumping the products in the export market below cost or even below price. So a form of international price discrimination occurs when foreign buyers are charged lower prices. You dump to overseas consumers. Charge lower, foreign buyers charge lower prices than domestic buyers for the same product. Also selling in foreign markets at a price below cost of production. So that's dumping. Forms of dumping: sporadic dumping. A firm disposes of excess inventories in foreign markets by selling a price below domestic price. Predatory dumping: producers temporarily reduce price, charge abroad to drive foreign competitors out of business. Persistent dumping goes on indefinitely to maximize economic profits. A producer may consistently sell abroad at a lower price than at home. Sporadic dumping is like sale, your summer sale, winter sales. You can imagine to that. Now we're gonna study this with the graph here. International price discrimination: lower prices for foreign market compared with local markets or domestic market. So producers charge more at home with less competition and more overseas to compete. Submarkets demand. So when we talk about submarket, this is submarket. So here is total market of this steel. 2 countries total markets, sub-market South Korea, and another sub-market Canada. Sub-markets demand condition must differ, different demand elasticities. Firm must be able to separate sub-markets, prevent arbitrage, resale of goods at higher prices. Markets easier to separate internationally, higher transportation costs and trade restrictive. Let's go to the graph. So assume here South Korea, here Canada, still South Korea less elastic market. Less elastic. The demand. West Canada more elastic. Lower gradient, more elastic. So total market we add horizontally from both South Korea and Canadian markets. So Korean firms maximizes profit by producing and selling 45, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. It's marginal revenue, this is South Korea plus Canada. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. That's the rule for profit maximizing. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So here 45. At that point of 45, ATC, average total cost, is 300. Total cost is therefore 300 times 45 total cost, which is 13,500. So in a non-discriminating case, Korean firm sells 45. If non-discriminating, sells 45 at 500. At 500. Optimal output where horizontal line intersects demand schedule. That's at 500. So at 500, this 500 line, therefore intersect here, demand and 500 line in Korean sub-market. So this company, Korean company, sells 35 units to Koreans or Korean buyers, and intersect here in the sub-market of Canada, and sells 10 units to Canadians. So you can calculate that gives 17,500 plus 5. So profits now is this one, the total, minus total cost. It's now that we calculate total cost. So now gives us profit of 9,000 in a non-discriminating case. Now this Korean company can charge higher prices by doing the price discrimination, international price discrimination, charging higher prices to Korean buyers, charging higher prices to domestic consumers, but lower prices to charging higher prices to domestic or Korean buyers, which is less elastic. The demand is less elastic. On the other hand, lower prices to foreign buyers, to Canadians, which is more elastic, without incurring additional cost, and make profits. So at marginal rate, marginal revenue equals marginal cost. and where horizontal line intersects with marginal revenue schedule in each sub-market. Marginal revenue schedule, just now demand, now marginal revenue schedule. So the price discrimination sells 25 to Koreans at 700. The demand is 7. So sells 25, previously 35, non-discriminating, now 25 at 700. Why? How do we know that? This is the demand. So this, the dot here, and sell only 20 to Canadian buyers at the price of 400 only. Higher to Koreans 700, lower to foreign markets, to Canadians 400. So total profit now, you calculate this, plus this, get this, minus total cost, which is 13,500, same total cost, gives the Korean company $12,000 profit, which is bigger than previously. 9,000 only in the non-discriminating case. Now with price discrimination, more profits. So how do we correct this? So there's anti-dumping duty levied when U.S. Department of Commerce, this is the case of United States, determines if foreign merchandise being sold at less than fair value, and U.S. International Trade Commission, that was the Department of Commerce, now another agency, International Trade Commission, determines that LTFV imports are causing injury. That's the term, okay? Causing or threatening material injury to domestic industry. So anti-dumping duties imposed in addition to the normal tariff. Once established that dumping really happened, so anti-dumping duties imposed. So how do you calculate that? So margin of dumping, amount by which foreign market value exceeds US price. Amount by which foreign market value exceeds US price, because they dump to the US at lower price compared with what they sold, what they sell in the local markets. So amount by which foreign market value exceeded that difference. So foreign market value, two definitions. Price-based definitions, dumping occurs when foreign firms sell goods at price in the US below home price. There's price-based, below home price. Another one, cost-based, used when price-based definition cannot be applied. So cost of manufacturing merchandise plus general expenses, at least 10% of cost of manufacturing, plus profit on home market sales, at least 8% of manufacturing cost, and plus general expenses, and packaging merchandise for shipment to the United States. So a lot more complicated, you know, based on cost definition. You have to get the cost and plus profit. You assume that 8% and general expenses and so on. If there is no price as a base to calculate the dumping, the margin of dumping. So this is example. World Food agitates for anti-dumping tariff on clothes washes 93,000 employees, 21 billion in annual sales, 70. This is just a story, okay? So in 2011, Whirlpool filed an anti-dumping and anti-subsidy petitions against Samsung and LG, which it contended were selling in the US at prices substantially less than fair value. 2016, Whirlpool filed again. 2017, US State International Trade Commission approved Whirlpool's petition for safeguard protection. Another case, Vaughan Vesey Furniture Company, furniture dumping from China. Vaughan Vesey Furniture and other US furniture manufacturers, over opposition of many US furniture retailers, filed anti-dumping complaints against China. In 2005, United States government imposed dumping duties on most Chinese furniture, resulted in decrease in Chinese furniture. However, imports from Vietnam, Indonesia and other countries filled the vacuum. Returned Vaughan Vesey Furniture to profitability. Is now largest wood bedroom manufacturer in the United States. Is anti-dumping law unfair? Supporters claim that such laws needed to ensure level playing field, fairness, by offsetting artificial sources of competitive advantage. Critics note that although protected industries gain, consumers lose more, and economy as a whole therefore suffers net loss. So the critics. Should average variable cost be the yardstick for defining dumping? Economists argue that fair value should be based on average variable cost rather than average total cost, especially when domestic economy experiences temporary downturns in demand. That's why average is better rather than total. So you average it. Average variable cost. So under competitive conditions, firms price goods at average variable cost. Anti-dumping laws punish competitive behavior. US firms selling at home not subject to the same rule. So I'm not going to comment on this. We can skip this. Should anti-dumping law reflect currency fluctuation? Fluctuation in exchange rate can cause a foreign producer to dump, according to legal definition. You know, the exchange rate, that can happen, that because of exchange rate, can sell it cheaper legally. Are anti-dumping duties overused? Now, nations small and large bring anti-dumping cases, leading to retaliation. In many cases where imports were determined to be dumped, they would not have been questioned under the same country's antitrust law. Antitrust law is a competition law. In other countries, called competition law, to make sure there's free competition. United States called antitrust. Government procurement policies. Now let's go to other non-tariff barriers. So government procurement is also another type of non-tariff barrier to trade. The government have policy to buy from certain countries, or to buy whatever the requirements that they have. So let's look. Buy American here. So 1933 Buy American Act, buy only product, to priority for American products, requires federal agencies to purchase materials and products from US suppliers if price is not unreasonably higher than foreign. So domestic product must be 50% or domestic component content and be USA manufactured. That was 1933. US suppliers are civilian agencies, preference over foreign firms, 6 to 12% preference margin, 50% preference margin for Department of Defense. Preferences waived if US produced goods is not available in sufficient quantities or is not satisfactory in quality. So we just finished one. Government procurement policies regarding purchase by the government. Like in Malaysia in the past, there was a policy. That policy is no more. Government public service must use Malaysia Airline at that time, unless you cannot get Malaysia Airline. That's one of the example, but not anymore. Now, social regulation, also another non-tariff barriers to trade. To correct a variety of undesirable side effects of market ignores health, safety, and the environment. So CAFE standard, corporate average fuel economy standard, this is one example. Environment and safety, passenger cars, to make sure fuel economy meet the standard, and light truck and so on. I don't want to read the numbers. Other non-tariff barriers, Europe has a cow over hormone-treated US beef, ban on hormone-treated meat. And sea transport and freight regulations. US shipping companies serving Japanese ports complain of highly restrictive system of port services, required to clear every detail of visits with Japan's Stevedore Company Association. Dock workers available only 18 hours a day or less made US goods more expensive in Japan. In 1997, the United States and Japan, on the brink of trade war, reached an agreement to liberalize port services in Japan. Now, in all that we've discussed, the non-tariff barriers, there are new types of non-tariff barriers. New types. Why new? They are not related to trade issues. So, try to tie or to connect or to tie trade policy to non-trade issues. For example, environment, even though we discuss here, environment, health and safety, but this is more and so. This is the new non-tariff barriers to connect trade policy of their country to non-trade issue, environment. For example, in Europe, there's eco-labeling of tropical woods. Tropical woods are labeled in Europe. You go to the shop at the woods, this is labeled here, tropical woods, because the Europeans are educated in terms of environmental protection. So when they saw, this is tropical woods, they know orang utan in Malaysia, because the propaganda was that these tropical woods in Malaysia has been all flat, and orang-utan has no place in the jungle anymore to stay. So, orang-utan, no more orang-utan. So I don't want to buy these tropical woods. So eco-labeling, that's another tactic of stopping tropical woods, for example, from Malaysia, from all these countries, to go into European countries. So in EU, they have eco-labeling of tropical woods. This is one example. Labor standards, child labor. In the past, long time ago, United States complained about Indonesia using a child labor. So because child labor, you pay only little, so that's not fair trade. That's why your products is cheaper. And United States also, long time ago, complained about prison labor from the prisons. Prisoners, you don't have to pay any money to them, but they go to there's a factory in the prison to produce products and export to the United States. So United States complained, you're using labor from the prisons, so it's not fair. So tying this to labor standards. So these are non-trade issues: labor, environment, and technical standards, like catalytic converter. Long time ago, any car that goes into the United States must have a catalytic converter to reduce the smoke coming out. So technical standards put there in order to stop products from coming, the non-tariff barriers. Health and safety, products that go into the United States must be USDA certified, United States Department of Agriculture approved, and then other agency for safety and so on. Human rights, also connecting this country, whatever country tramples on human rights, so we wanna stop products coming, so we're gonna put high tariff for their country. Example, this is non-tariff barrier. What I said, gonna put tariff, yeah, we're gonna stop, like embargo. Yeah, so I'm at the end of it. So we've just studied tonight. Number one, free trade is good. I mean, I'm recapping the whole thing. Free trade is good. Quota is the worst. Tariff is also not good, but that's how we have today. Tariff is something that part of trade policy. So countries negotiate through this WTO. However, we're going to study in chapter 6, next chapter, that the last round of WTO, Doha round, there's no sight of or progress in the Doha round. But that's how the world works now. Tariff negotiation to reduce, and countries operate with having some tariffs on their products, but all this under the purview of WTO, World Trade Organization. So, okay, tariff, quota, tariff. Subsidy. Domestic subsidy has only one deadweight loss compared with tariff. So domestic production subsidy is bad but it's not as bad as tariff, not as bad as quota. However, export policy is just as bad as tariff, because there are two parts of the deadweight loss, whereas the domestic production, better show this. Yeah, domestic production subsidy is only one here, deadweight loss, whereas export subsidy, there are two deadweight loss, here and here. Tariff, two deadweight loss. Quota is the same. Actually, tariff and quota, the graph is the same graph. But I taught you the other class, we draw it differently. We don't know ahead of time 7,000. This is tariff, we know 7,000. But to the effect of 3 only imports. So we can take the equivalent, take the 3 and bring up. Oh, bring the 3 up, 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 up. Oh, then we make the line. Oh, 7,000. We know the price after, later, not before. That's the quota. So they have the same impact, 3. So with the same two deadweight loss. So I hope everything is good for you. Thank you for watching, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.